Hi, I'm Eric Bulling in for Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Let's get straight to our top story. The FBI today made public dozens of pages of documents from its investigation into Hillary Clinton's personal email use while Secretary of State. FBI Director James Comey announced on July 5th that he wasn't recommending any charges against Hillary, but said she was, quote, extremely careless, unquote, in handling of, quote, very sensitive, highly classified information, unquote. Joining us now from Washington is Fox News Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herod. So, Catherine, in these new documents released by the FBI, what did you find?
Well, Eric, the critical document is this one here. It's called an FBI 302. That's the code the FBI uses to describe interview summaries. You know, it's not standard for the FBI to tape record an interview. That was true in the Clinton case, so there's no transcript. There's just a summary based on the agent's notes. And what's really stunning as you read this document is again and again and again, Hillary Clinton, on very key questions, says she simply does not recall. She does not recall when she got her security clearance. She does not recall whether she got specialized training for handling classified information. She doesn't recall whether she had special briefings for handling what's called special access program intelligence. These are some of the government's most closely held secrets. And the other thing that really jumped out at me is this issue of intent. She said she couldn't really remember the circumstances around which they set up the ClintonEmail.com account in 2009. But the FBI agents, based on this document, they never press her on this issue. There's no follow-up in this case, and this really backs up the criticism of Republicans on the Hill who had read this document, that it just seemed they never pressed her hard on the key issues, Eric.
And also, there was another document, 47 pages, where kind of details of some of the investigation that the FBI was doing. I found that very, very interesting. A lot of information we hadn't heard in there as well.
Well, that document says that she had, over the course of using the server, more than a dozen devices, and that would undercut her claim that this was really about having a single device and convenience. And also, based on the document, it's not clear they always knew where her devices were or how, in fact, they were disposed of. And look, anyone with any technical ability understands that when you're finished with a device, especially a device in this case that it turns out had classified information, you have to take very special steps to destroy that data. And I find it interesting they took more extreme steps to delete the emails they felt were not government records and that were personal. Yeah,
those 33,000 she didn't have to recall. I guess they just got rid of them very quickly. Catherine, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Joining us now with reaction from Washington, Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch and author of the upcoming book, Clean House, Exposing Our Government's Secrets and Lies. Now, Judicial Watch has played a key role in making Hillary Clinton's emails public in several Freedom of Information Act lawsuits, and also made a FOIA request to get today's FBI documents released. Now, Tom, you had some time to comb through some of these documents. What are the most interesting new news that we didn't hear about before? What did you learn?
Well, Mrs. Clinton's memory problem is notable. I count 30, 40 times where she said, I don't recall. At one point, she said, when asked about briefings she may have had about the handling of documents and what she should have done with them when she was leaving office, she said, well, I had a concussion, so I may not remember the meetings. Other documents show that the FBI report shows that she kept her BlackBerry in the secure part of the State Department where classified information is discussed and used, and that's in violation of the rules. You're not supposed to have any computer devices like that, unsecured computer devices in those sensitive areas. And on top of that, she blames everyone else for her classified mishandling. She says, I trusted the others not to send me material that was inappropriate in terms of being classified, and seems to argue with the FBI why it's okay to summarize and send around and use classified information on her system. But she admits she had what is called original classification authority, which is very important, because that shows she knew and understood her obligations to police everything she was getting at the State Department for classified information. And she had individual responsibility no matter what anyone else was doing. And the topper is, supposedly Colin Powell suggested if she told anyone about her device, they would be asking for it and suggest it was government records. And boy, that leads to the conclusion she didn't tell anyone, at least publicly, about her devices. because she didn't want anyone to know about them and get the records. And then it turns out, after the story broke in the New York Times, one of her computer people went and deleted her emails. This is after the news broke, and it looks like a meeting with her lawyer took place around the time that happened, and they declined to divulge what was said with Mr. Kendall, her lawyer, using citing attorney-client privilege.
While reading this other document, the 47-page document, which, by the way, the last, I'd say 10 or 12 pages are completely redacted, a couple things jumped out at me. They admit they had 13 total devices over the period of her time at the State Department. Previously, I've heard 1 or 2. That now it's 13. But this is how these devices were acquired. Hillary Clinton would send an assistant who would literally go to the same electronic store somewhere in Washington, D.C., and buy it retail. Now, can you imagine that this is the Secretary of State, the most powerful diplomat on the planet, having an assistant walk into an AT&T store, buying a device? After about the 3rd or 4th, don't you realize that the secretary is getting these devices? It seems like it's open, absolutely open for espionage or stealing of information.
Well, exactly right. And 13 devices over 4 years. Now, you know, we all have phones, but who goes through that many phones? So much for the convenience sake. And she recognizes that there were security issues and there were warnings, but of course she doesn't remember some of the details, the key details of that. And we have the documents showing she was warned repeatedly on the lack of security, yet she continued to do it all the time. And she acknowledges all these documents were sent out, but she can't remember the warnings everyone else in the State Department had. But evidently she didn't bother following.
Tom, at one point there was a line or a paragraph in this FBI document that said Clinton asked for an encryption to be put on the server, but no one did it because they were so frequently fixing the server. They were replacing the software. They said they couldn't put the encryption on. It wasn't going to work. Does that refute some of the things that she's testified as to?
It sure does, and it shows that her server was even less secure than would have been normal for most other servers, even in the private sector. And I tell you, when you look at the rigmarole that they were going through to set up these servers, moving them in and out of different servers, mailing them, they're losing computers, losing Mrs. Clinton's emails in the mail, supposedly, we're told. The key laptop with her archive supposedly was lost in the mail. You know, the FBI, frankly, comes across kind of like the Keystone Cops here, coming to the game very late, asking questions very late in the game, not knowing where any of the key materials are, and relying on, at one point, they referencing the campaign website to figure out how many emails she may have had.
Yep. All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Tom Fitton, thank you very much. The polls keep tightening, and there's more troubling news about the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton's email server almost every day. Is the Clinton campaign getting nervous? A top Clinton supporter steps into the no-spin zone directly ahead. In the Impact segment tonight, for more reaction to the FBI's release of the documents in the Hillary Clinton email investigation, let's bring in from Phoenix Hillary Clinton supporter Congressman Ruben Gallego. So, Congress, anything stand out, jump out at you? Anything troubling in these documents that the FBI released today?
No, not really, and especially coming from the opinion of the Hillary campaign is they wish this actually had come out earlier. You know, we want to be fully transparent. She has said that she wants to be fully transparent. She stood in a committee hearing getting grilled for 11 hours and came out smelling like roses. And, you know, only problem, again, is the drip nature of this. And, you know, hopefully they have everything that needs to come out should come out right away. And at the end of the day, we know that the American public are going to make their decisions not based on email policies, but about what the future of the country is going to look like.
Congressman, at one point, and I'm quoting this document here, the FBI did find, quote, hostile foreign actors who successfully gained access to Hillary Clinton emails. That doesn't trouble you?
Well, obviously, any type of you know, attack on any government service and any of our servers or anything of that nature is troubling. But at the same time, you know, if this is a question, then, you know, this should have been brought up during the committee hearing, and there's going to be other, I'm sure, attempts by the congressional Republicans to make this an even more partisan issue.
Well, how is that partisan, Congressman? It's an American issue, right? Democrats are going to be affected by this as well if quote, hostile foreign actors have successfully gained access to some of the state's most classified material?
Well, it's partisan the nature of how the Republican committee members have been handling this. Instead
Why
of
are you making this
being fully
partisan, Congressman?
transparent.
You're an American, right? You should be concerned with it, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. You should be concerned if a, quote, hostile foreign actor has access to our secrets.
As I said it earlier, I am concerned, but I am also telling you right now that instead of dealing with this in a professional manner, the Republican committee members have treated this in a partisan manner and have basically been leaking out information instead of.
Or you could just say, yeah, it's bad. Or you can say, yeah, it's bad. Now we know, and we can move on from there. That would be probably better to do. This is the no spin zone. How about this?
Right.
This document shows a series of occurrences where the FBI asked the Hillary Clinton lawyers teamed up to help her to come forth with material, to come forth with these devices. And they're consistently saying they can't find it. They don't have it. At one point, they asked for all 13 devices that we now know she's used, and they said they could find none. About 4 months later, they found 2 of the 13.
Well, again, this has already been litigated a lot in the press and through our committees. And the Hillary campaign is going to continue to keep pushing forward, giving as much information and transparency as possible. But, we're focused on winning this race, and we'll continue pushing forward on that.
She can't shake this issue, Congressman. This continues because we keep finding more and more information. The problem is that it continues to feed the narrative that you can't trust Hillary Clinton. In fact, there's a new poll out today that had 59% of people polled don't trust her.
Well, again, this is why the Hillary campaign and Secretary Clinton have been very clear. They want everything released. They don't like this drip nature. They don't like how partisan it's become. And at the end of the day, Secretary Clinton has been one of the most transparent as well as scrutinized candidates in the history of the United States. Since she's been First Lady, she's been under scrutiny, and every time she always comes out and comes out looking great. So, and while there may be some disagreements about how things were handled, at the end of the day, Secretary Clinton is going to be the better president for this country than Donald Trump, and that's a decision that Americans have to make.
All right, Congressman, before I let you go, I'm just going to ask you, is everything okay? Is she all right? We now find in these documents some 40 times she said she can't remember a question that was asked of her by the FBI. Can't remember. Seems to be excessive.
I mean, I think it's very laughable, those kinds of arguments. She's been very clear about her status. I mean, actually more so compared also to Donald Trump. And look, she was the Secretary of State of the most powerful country in the world. The level of interaction that she's doing on a daily basis, I can't even imagine.
Well, these aren't exactly specific things. They're asking her some fairly general questions when she said she couldn't remember. Here's my question, though. Why doesn't she at least get in front of some cameras and some reporters and answer some questions in a press conference?
Absolutely. And I think she really has. I mean, if you look at it, she met with the National Association of Black Journalists last week, or a month ago, I believe, and had a press conference. She just recently announced that she'll be traveling with the press corps, the presidential campaign press corps.
It's not the same, Congressman. It's not the same. It's not the same when you're with a group that you know are friendly to you, and it's not the same when you say, "Hey, I gave you a one-on-one interview," or "You're traveling with me." You'd like to see all the things. You'd like everyone to get a shot at some questions.
As well as 300 individual interviews that she has had since she started running for office.
Congressman, got to leave it there. Thank you very much, sir. Up next, how is the Trump campaign reacting to the release of the FBI Clinton documents? Trump spokeswoman Katrina Pearson will be here directly ahead. In the Factor follow-up segment tonight, how the Trump campaign is reacting to this release of the FBI documents in the Clinton email case. Here in studio is Katrina Pearson, Trump campaign national spokesperson. So, Katrina, what jumps out for you and what jumps out for the campaign? What did we learn today?
Well, I think everything jumps out. More importantly, we are told over and over again that Hillary Clinton is the most qualified person to ever run for the presidency when her experience shows exactly the opposite. Just in the previous reporting, the fact that she couldn't recall so many times that she was supposedly had been trained on classified information. And this is a woman who was First Lady. She was a 2-term senator and Secretary of State. and she can't remember if she was trained on classified information. And I think more importantly, the C's marked on the emails. She didn't know that meant classified. In fact, she said that she thought they were alphabetical order, as if it were kindergarten. She's obviously been lying. She's going to continuously lie. And I think this is just another indicator of why Hillary Clinton is unfit to serve as president.
Unfit. Unfit because she's lying? Unfit because you think there's a health issue? What is it?
She's unfit because, A, she's lying. We know this. She lied under oath to Congress. And her experience. When we look at everything that she has done throughout her history in public office, frankly, we have 40 years. She's done absolutely nothing during that time. A lot of the policies she's talking about, she's wanting to implement as president, she didn't even do while she was senator. She didn't propose any of those bills and legislation. But more importantly, we are talking about national security at this point when we are facing one of the greatest crises we've had with terrorism. National security is key in this election. In November, we have an opportunity to have someone like Donald Trump who wants to put Americans and American security first versus Hillary Clinton, which is the status quo. She used 13 devices and 5 iPads. She said she only used 1. We don't even know where some of these devices are.
A couple of the troubling things that I was looking at, I asked the Clinton surrogate about, and he didn't seem to have a problem with it, but the FBI did find that, quote, hostile foreign actors somehow got access to her emails. Concerned?
Absolutely concerned. And we also know that her iCloud, there was an attempt to hack her iCloud. And the fact that she's lying about it is disturbing. And we know this because she says, and this is in the documents, that she deleted the emails because she didn't think she needed them anymore. When in fact we know now she deleted them after the New York Times article came out. And for someone who has spent so long in public office, she's never been exposed to the records retention responsibilities of someone who serves in public office. I mean, this is absurd.
So what does the campaign do? Does the campaign stay on this?
Oh, absolutely. The campaign is going to continue to draw that contrast of Donald Trump, a strong businessman who wants to give back to his country because he's been successful and wants to see other Americans be successful, wants to stop the status quo and the corruption. We have to get back to the basics. Donald Trump wants to do common sense governance. Number one, we have to protect American interests at home and abroad. Hillary Clinton has failed miserably.
Donald called into the factor last night, talked about his immigration plan. He said he was going to remove all the criminal aliens. They're gone, and then we're going to see what happens with the balance. What does that mean?
Well, that means for many years we've heard politicians who want to talk about immigration reform, and we never seem to secure the border and implement current laws. And we saw this in the 80s with Reagan's amnesty. And this is Mr. Trump's attempt to show the public and to bring back good faith that we can do what's right as far as moving forward. This is not about breaking up families. This is simply about national security.
Do they go, though? The illegals that are here?
Oh, Mr. Trump, if you are illegal in this country, Mr. Trump says all illegals should leave the country. And if you want to be a citizen, you reapply. We have people right now paying $5,000 to $15,000 for attorneys and fees to be legal citizens of this country. It's not fair, and we have to get back to the basics.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about, he's going to Detroit. You're going to travel to Detroit as well?
Yes.
And that's going to be an African-American outreach?
Absolutely.
Inner city outreach, African-American, Hispanics as well?
Oh, absolutely. This is something that Mr. Trump's been wanting to do for a very long time. And what's been underreported in the media are his meeting with the Black Chamber of Commerce during the primary, his meetings with the Black Pastors Organizations during the primaries. He went to Chicago to have a rally. Should he be
doing that again now that he's the nominee?
Absolutely. He's going to continue to meet with all organizations. Mr. Trump has been running and working very hard. He's not out at the Hamptons doing a gazillion fundraisers. He's out there working on the weekend.
That is a good point. All right, Katrina, thank you very much. I'll leave it right there. The poll numbers in some key swing states are looking better and better for Trump. Newt Gingrich will be here next to assess Trump's strategy to win the White House, and that is upcoming. In the election 2016 segment tonight, Trump's path to victory. Last night on The Factor, Larry Sabato, director of the University of Virginia's Center for Politics, had a pessimistic view of Trump's chances to defeat Hillary Clinton in November.
If you get all of Mitt Romney's states, including North Carolina, and you flip those Rust Belt states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Michigan, then you get to 270, yes.
Well, what does he have to do that?
Well, he's going to have some luck.
With us now to respond in Washington, D.C. is former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, a Trump supporter. So, Newt, Trump says he's been pleased by some recent polls. Where do you see the race right now?
Well, first of all, Larry Sabato's idea of luck may or may not include the obvious fact that the FBI just reported that when Hillary said she turned over all of her work emails, she was only off by 13,700. I mean, how much luck can you get with learning that Bill Clinton was taking taxpayer money to get rid of bedbugs? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So I would say that Trump's luck is likely to continue and get better and better as we learn more and more about how corrupt and how dishonest the Clintons are. But I think there are four things people don't quite get in the elite media that change all of this. The first is that there are really big issue differences, and in most cases, the elite media is on Hillary's side, so they don't understand the power, for example, of worrying about honest voting. They don't understand the power of sanctuary cities. They don't understand the power of worrying about jobs in the current weak economy. They don't understand the power of saying we shouldn't let terrorists in the country. That's done number one. Number two, the difference right now that's growing between a very aggressive, energetic Donald Trump. People in Louisiana are in trouble. Here comes Donald Trump. Hillary's hiding in the Hamptons raising money. The Mexican president offers an invitation. Here comes Donald Trump. Hillary's in the Hamptons raising money. I mean, what you have is an energetic, dynamic business entrepreneur who is showing the kind of aggressive president he would be, and you have Hillary over here hiding and raising money, hoping the ads will take care of her. Third, I think there's a huge difference in this race and any other race I've seen in the gap about the core values of the American people. The elites, whether it's in Europe or across the planet, the elites are in more and more trouble as the average person realizes that things aren't on the right track and that things aren't working very well. That we're now past, I think it's 3,700 killed in Chicago, for example, since Obama became president. Nobody can be comfortable with that. Lastly, frankly, I think that there is a moment here that we're going to see in the debates and the whole difference between the two of them. Donald Trump is the first Republican I can remember who is explicitly saying to the African-American community, things can be better, but not with Democrats in charge. If he continues to say it, and if he has the courage to go back to places like Chicago and say it, I think he's going to get far more votes in the black community than any Republican in modern times. That alone changes Larry Sabato's calculus.
All right, Mr. Speaker, let's talk a little bit about this immigration situation. Donald Trump, as you pointed out, met with Mexican President Peña Nieto in the morning or in the early afternoon. He came off very presidential, very statesman-like. And then that evening, he delivered a very enthusiastic speech directed right to his base. A lot of people on the left said, well, there it is again. He's flip-flopping. At one moment you have this Donald, next minute you have that Donald. Decipher that. Will that be seen as a win, that day be seen as a win?
Oh, it's seen by the American people as a win, and that's what the polls are saying. Trump proved, first of all, that he was not afraid to go to Mexico. He was not afraid to meet with the president of Mexico, despite the strong words both have used. He also proved that he could stand on a stage and look fully as presidential as the incumbent president of Mexico. That was an enormous win for him, and one that Hillary has to be looking at with some real fear. Second, he proved when he came home that he's really Donald Trump. You see, everybody on the left, when they say they want him to mature, they mean they want him to sell out. That's what mature means if you're a liberal. When you're talking to a conservative, you have a chance to be more mature always means you have a chance to sell out. What Trump proved was he's perfectly happy to negotiate with the president of Mexico, but by the way, he's going to negotiate from an American perspective, not from a globalist international perspective. And that's why the elite media have gone crazy about his speech on immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I got just about a minute or so. Why do you think Hillary Clinton has not done a press conference, and we're going on 10 months now?
Because she can't lie to the entire corps of reporters simultaneously and survive it. She can't tell the truth and survive it. She has, I mean, this is why her campaign, I think, is terminal. This is the most dishonest, corrupt candidate ever to run for president of the United States. And every time we learn more about it, it's more sickening. And I think over the next month or so, you're going to learn even more about it. And I think that's why, in the end, Larry Sabato's luck is going to go to Donald Trump.
All right, very good. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Trump's been making a sustained appeal to African-American voters, but will it work? We're going to debate that next on The Factor.
The O'Reilly Factor, the #1 cable news show for 16 years and counting.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Eric Bolling in for Bill O'Reilly. And in the Unresolved Problems segment tonight, Trump and the African-American vote. The city of Chicago recorded 90 homicides in the month of August, the bloodiest month in the Windy City in 20 years. With much of the violence occurring in African-American neighborhoods, Trump has made curbing crime in urban areas a big part of his pitch to black voters.
Chicago just had the most violent month in 20 years. More than 2,800 people have been shot in Chicago since just the beginning of the year. You look at war-torn countries are safer than living in our inner cities by a lot. It will and it must be ended. Under a Trump administration, it will indeed end.
As part of his appeal to African-American voters, Trump is making a visit to the black church Great Faith Ministries International in Detroit on Saturday. With us now for analysis, Robert Jeffers, the senior pastor of the First Baptist Church in Dallas, along with Nikki Johnson Houston, an attorney and civil rights advocate in Philadelphia. Nikki, we'll start with you. What do you want to hear from Donald Trump when he visits Detroit tomorrow?
Well, I want to hear solutions about what's going on in the African-American community and why African-American voters should stop supporting the Democrats and start supporting the Republicans. I want to hear an articulate plan about how we're going to make it better, other than just saying it can't get any worse. We want to hear solutions.
Before I go to Pastor Jeffers, Ms. Houston, did you hear that? Do you think that President Obama has been good for the African-American community, at least jobs and economically?
Look, I think that he's tried, but the truth is that it requires people from both sides, both parties, to be part of the solution. I live in a city that has not had a mayor from a different party, a Republican party, in about 50 years. I think that having multiple people sit at the table and come up with solutions is a positive thing. So this is not just a Democrat problem. This is a Democrat and Republican and American problem.
Okay,
we're losing too many young people.
Pastor Jeffers, your thoughts? And Nikki Johnson Houston points out that Philadelphia hasn't had a Republican mayor in over 50 years, but a lot of major cities in the U.S. haven't either. And the African-American unemployment rate is higher than the national average, and the poverty rate is higher than the national average in those Democrat-run cities.
Well, that's right. And remember, by going to a black evangelical church tomorrow, Trump is really doing two things. He's signaling, first of all, he's not going to surrender the black vote to Hillary Clinton, but he's also saying he's not going to neglect evangelicals as a whole like Mitt Romney and John McCain did. I talked with Trump earlier this week about this, and believe me, he understands the importance of the evangelical vote from all races. He knows that many of the issues evangelicals of all races care about, the sanctity of life, religious liberty, are going to be decided by the Supreme Court. He alone has made the commitment to appoint conservative justices to the Supreme Court who will interpret the law by the Constitution and not by political correctness. And Eric, I think this is resonating with evangelical voters. Many Christians of all races understand this election is the last opportunity to at least slow down the great unraveling we're seeing of our country.
Nikki, can Donald Trump capture some of the African-American vote? Like right now, it's, I don't know, I think he's polling somewhere around 8%. That means 92% are going to vote for Hillary Clinton. What does he need to do to make that more equitable?
I think the kind of things that he is doing, I think he needs to go to churches. I'd like to see him go to a Howard University. I'd like to see him meet with legislators and city council people in some of these big cities. So yes, the churches are important, but that's not the only place that black life is. The truth is that we have similar values to your viewers. We care about good schools,
So why does the African-American vote always go Democratic? Why is that? I mean, we're seeing poverty rates in some major cities among African-Americans that's higher than it's been in 50 years.
Because Democrats are in our community. They're coming to the graduations. Unfortunately, Republicans have abdicated the African American vote. And unfortunately, you can't come to us once every 4 years and start talking about those issues.
You know what, Pastor? Pastor, she's right. She's right. You can't come once every 4 years when you want the vote. You got to spend some time there in between. I completely agree with that, don't you?
And I do agree with that. And I think from talking to Donald Trump, he has a sincere interest in the well-being of minority communities. You know, I pointed out that 8% figure to Trump this week and reminded him that is more than Romney or McCain had. And as evangelicals go, evangelicals are preferring him by a more than 3-to-1 margin over Clinton. He said, that's great, Robert, but I want to know who that one is. That tells me that he is not taking the black vote for granted. He's not taking evangelicals for granted. He's going after every voter.
Very, very good.
But he didn't show up to the NAACP when we asked, and he should have. He missed an opportunity.
Got to leave it there, right there, you guys. Nikki Pastor, thank you so much. The moderators of the upcoming presidential debates were announced today, and one of them is Fox News' very own Chris Wallace. Wallace will be here up next to tell us how he plans to approach the debate directly ahead. In the personal story segment tonight, the presidential debates, the Commission on Presidential Debates today announced the moderators for the three big showdowns on September 26th. NBC News' Lester Holt will moderate the first debate. On October 9th, ABC News' Martha Raddatz and CNN's Anderson Cooper will moderate the second. And the third and final debate will be moderated by Fox News Sunday's anchor Chris Wallace on October 19th. Congratulations to Chris on that. Anyone who saw how Wallace handled the GOP debates during the primary season knows why he got the job.
How can you win in 2016 when you're such a divisive figure? What evidence do you have, specific evidence, that the Mexican government is sending criminals across the border? I'll give you 30 seconds to try to answer my question. What specifically would you do to bring manufacturing jobs back to Detroit and to train the residents here to do those jobs? With that record, why should we trust you to run the nation's business? Can you definitively say tonight that you will definitely support the Republican nominee for president, even if it's not you?
The debates are set to receive huge ratings, and as Bill O'Reilly has been predicting, the stakes couldn't be higher.
Americans will not lock in until after Labor Day. And, of course, the three debates will mean everything this year.
Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is Chris Wallace himself, anchor of Fox News Sunday, and, as we point out, debate moderator. Chris, first of all, congratulations. Second of all, talk to us about how these, I think you call them buckets, I guess they're lines of questioning, how they get developed. Is it you that picks them?
Yeah, this is very interesting. So I'm doing the third debate, and the first and third debates are basically the same procedure. There is one moderator and the two candidates, I guess a third candidate, if one of the third-party candidates gets 15%, like Gary Johnson, the Libertarian Party candidate. But assuming it's Trump and Clinton, it'll just be the three of us on the stage. And this was one of the revelations to me, because I was talking yesterday when I got the official word from the Debate Commission. There are going to be 6 buckets, 6 subjects, each one 15 minutes, an hour and a half total. And I'll ask a question, and each of them will get 2 minutes to answer, and then I'll try to facilitate, I was going to say a conversation, basically a debate between the two of them for the remaining 11 minutes. And when I asked somebody on the panel, well, who decides what the 6 buckets are, they said, you do. Good. So, you know, it's up to me. There's no bureaucracy. There's no panel. I can get some advice from people, but basically I'll have to decide, and the commission will inform the two campaigns what the 6 buckets are. Obviously, I'm not going to decide it now. I'm going to have to wait and see the 2 previous debates. I'll have to see what's happening in the campaigns. I'll have to see what's happening in the world, and then decide in mid-October what are the best things to discuss.
Well, okay, so in the primaries, there are some specific topics. In other words, there's a national security debate, there's an economy debate. This is general. Anything Chris Wallace wants to ask, he gets to ask?
Yeah, and I will tell you, I asked about that because there have in the past in these general election debates been, one was a domestic debate, one was a foreign policy debate, and what they found was whatever the topic was in the first debate, suddenly a bunch of questions on that same issue came up or same general area came up for the second debate. So what they basically said is, we want you to split it, whether it's 3 and 3 in the 6 buckets or 4 and 2. We want a mix of foreign policy and domestic issues in every debate. So, you know, we can be responsive to whatever is hot at that moment.
We got some news just a couple hours ago, Chris, that the FBI released I guess not the transcripts of some detailed summary of their investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server use devices. Will you incorporate some of that into your questions?
Well, I don't know, and if I knew, I wouldn't tell you. But, you know, we'll have to wait and see. It's interesting looking at that. They're called the 302. They don't do a transcript. They don't do a tape. The agents, FBI agents in the room, take notes, and these are their notes. What's interesting is the number of times that Secretary Clinton said she couldn't recall, or that she relied on the advice of other people. If somebody was sending her something, she just assumed it would be unclassified, or otherwise they wouldn't send it to her on her private server. And my sense of it doesn't make her look especially in command or in control, but it accomplished job one, which is to keep her from getting indicted. And my guess is that her approach to this interview was very heavily lawyered, and it was, let's make sure that you don't get into any legal jeopardy.
All right, very good. But who do you have on Fox News Sunday this Sunday, Chris?
Well, you know, there's going to be this interesting event on Saturday, and that is that Donald Trump's going to be making his first visit of the entire campaign to an inner city. He's going to Detroit with Ben Carson. He's going to speak at a black church, going to tour some of the area where Ben Carson grew up. We'll be talking to Ben Carson on Sunday, one, about what happened on the trip, and also why he thinks that Donald Trump's solutions for black America are better than the Democrats. And we're going to also have a top Democratic official to offer a counterpoint on that. And then we're going to also talk to Jill Stein. She's the Green Party candidate. Last week we had the Libertarian Party candidate. And, you know, they're also on the ballot, so we want to get everybody who's on the ballot so that the American voters can hear from them.
All right, that's great, Chris. Appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much. In the Back of the Book segment tonight, Colin Kaepernick and race in America. Last night, the San Francisco 49er quarterback continued his protest of what he says is racial injustice in America by refusing to stand for the national anthem.
Well, tonight the Chargers, their 28th time that they will present a salute to the military, in which 240 airmen, Marine, and sailors.
Kaepernick's teammate Eric Reed and the Seattle Seahawks' Jeremy Lane also refused to stand for the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner. Kaepernick isn't backing down from his actions, though.
The media painted this as anti-American, anti-men and women of the military, and that's not the case at all. The message is that we have a lot of issues in this country that we need to deal with. We have a lot of people that are oppressed. We have a lot of people that aren't treated equally, aren't given equal opportunities. You know, police brutality is a huge thing that needs to be addressed.
Joining us now from Los Angeles with the reaction is Jim Gray, a sportscaster and Fox News contributor. Now, Jim, you know, a lot of people fake outrage at certain things. I am genuinely outraged at this guy.
Well, and you feel like most of the crowd did last night in San Diego. He was greeted by tremendous boos. All week on social media, he has been condemned. Now, unfortunate thing and the disappointing thing about all of this is it's now spilled into sports, and you have to deal with domestic violence. You have to deal with drugs. We have child abuse. And now we're having a racial divide. It used to be the two places where America knew that they could get along and come together was in team sports and in the military. And now that divide is not is widening, and it's now spreading into sports, and it's very disappointing.
I'm not going to force you into an opinion on Kaepernick here. Here's what I'm going to ask you, though. So the guy wears socks that depict police officers as pigs. Remember that? And he kneels during the singing of the national anthem by an African-American military member. Is he going to lose endorsements because of this?
Of course he is, and I think that wearing those socks is despicable. I don't like it a bit. Now, you know, the NFL, though, I blame the policy in the NFL. The policy right now says that we encourage and recommend that guys stand for the national anthem, but it's not a requirement. I mean, they have a policy on everything in the NFL. What you can put on your headband, what you can put underneath your eyes, how high your socks are, whether you have to wear knee pads. And you're telling me there's no policy? So what you're going to have now as we approach September 11th, Eric, is we're going to have a bunch of guys on a bunch of teams who may go ahead with this because the NFL, no one is taking leadership and saying, you know what, here is our policy.
It's hard to force someone to do something, but what you can do, and these are in contracts all the time. I had pro contracts. You can fine them for doing something that's unbecoming of the team or the NFL.
Well, it's a team sport, and that's what bothers me as well. Here's an individual who's standing out. I understand and I respect Colin Kaepernick for wanting to make this country better. We all want to make this country better. I just don't believe that in a team sport at this time that this is the right way to go about it. Yes, sir?
I got to go, my friend. Thank you. Ran out of time. Thank you very much. That's it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Eric Bowling in for Bill O'Reilly, who returns on Tuesday. Please remember, the spin stops right here because we're looking out for you.